Now, we're going to speak first on God in His universe. Now, how could the world hold up in the space that it's in? After all, which is top or bottom of it? Who knows? The ones that's down at the north, at the South Pole, feel just as much like they're on top as the one at the North Pole. So you see, it's just, they push this way, which is pushing down. We think they're pointing up. See? They think they're pointing up, but they're pointing down to us. And we're pointing up, while we're pointing down to them. So it's hanging in air. What holds it there? Throw a ball in there and spin it as fast as you wish to. This world's turning a little better than 1,000 miles an hour. 25,000 miles around it makes a complete revolution every 24 hours. But, so it makes it a little better than 1,000 miles an hour it's turning. Well, you spin a ball into the air at equally the same speed. See, it wouldn't make one round in the same cycle. It would fall. It'd either be going up, going down, going sideways, or something. What holds it there? We know it's been here for 6,000 years. We have record of it. That is standing here in the same spot, and they can time it with the moon and stars so perfectly till it won't miss a second. And they can predict it 20 years ahead when the eclipse of the sun will be, when the moon and sun passes. Everything works in harmony to God, all of God's creation, but man. So man is His son and feels that he knows just a little bit more than Father does, so we try to figure it all out instead of just believing what He said about it. That's all. Some time ago, an infidel said to me, talking about all the moon and the sun and how it flickered a little piece off. I said, how are you going to prove that? And I said, the only thing you can do is prove it by faith. And I said, I want to tell you now, my faith's too weak for that. I just believe what the Bible said. That's the only thing I got faith in. It's what God said. He made the heavens and earth, and I just believe it that way. So that's the faith that I have. It's what God said about it. And now, then, how could it ever be? How could that little flower live this afternoon, that vine? How could it plant, without God? All the scientists in the world couldn't make one of those leaves on there. They can make something that looks like it, but they couldn't make that leaf because that leaf has got life in it, and science can never produce life. A little flower. You take like you women here. It gets cold here in the valley. I go around and see your flower gardens now. I was riding around a while ago trying to keep my mind on God and praying, Lord, do something here in the valley. Please help your people. It's such a dark hour. And riding up and down the roads praying. And then I passed by and seen the lovely flowers. Now, it won't be long till frost to hit that little flower. It'll bow its little head to death. Some of them will be young, middle-aged, and old. Out of there drops a little black seed. Whether you believe it or not, God has a funeral procession for His flowers. Did you know that? Sure does. The fall rains comes and cries great big tears down out of the skies and buries that little black seed under the ground. That's exactly right. Long comes the winter and freezes the seed. Burst is open, the pulp runs out, and now it freezes several inches deep. The stalk's gone, the bulb's gone, the petal's gone, the seed's gone, the pulp's gone. Is that the end of that flower? No, sir. Just as soon as the sun rises in the east and begins to warm, now you can't take a light and put on it to do it. It takes the sunlight light. Put the sunlight on it and begin to warm it, it'll come back to life again. God had that little germ of life hid somewhere so it could live again because it's in God's will. It's God's plan. God put it here for a purpose, and it doesn't fuss or stew. It just serves the purpose that God put it here for. And if we'll just do the same, serve the purpose that God put us here for. Not to just to be, we got to raise hogs and that's all right. We got to do this, other. But He put us here to be sons and daughters of God, to glorify Him and to praise Him. Like the little flower. Preached on the subject not long ago, behold the lilies. And I took the lily, Pastor Lily. How he opens up his heart. The bee takes his part out. And the tourists pass by. That beautiful smell. Everything gets a part of Mr. Lily, and he has to toil day and night to produce that. Don't you believe God is in His universe? Everywhere God is. Up at my home, I live on the Ohio River. And I just love water. And there was a little boy that lived down in the city, and he went to a church, and he's a fine little lad, and he said to his mother one day, he said, Mother, I want to ask you a question. Said, I hear the preacher talk about God being so great, and said, now, I just wonder if anybody could ever see God. Well, she said, honey, you asked your Sunday school teacher. Said, Mother couldn't answer that. I don't know nothing about it. And so they asked the Sunday school teacher, and she said, oh, I wouldn't know about that. You ought to ask the pastor. So he went and asked the pastor, and the pastor said, no, sonny, no man can see God. No man can see God and live. You just can't do it. So the little fellow was disappointed. He associated with an old fisherman. He lived on the river, and one day they was up around close to, pardon me, the 6 Mile Island, and they come up a storm. Excuse me. And they come up a storm, and the waters, you know how it gets after rain, the leaves are all washed off. The old fisherman got back out in the boat and started down the river pulling his boat. And just as an oarman or any boatman knows the harmony of that tip of the wave on the oars like that, is he bringing down, is pulling a box of fish behind. And there was a sun come out in the west over this way and was looking towards the east. The old fisherman was, and there come a rainbow across the skies. And the little fellow was sitting in the stern of the boat. And so he began to notice the old fisherman with his gray beard. Tears began to run down his cheeks as he looked at that rainbow going along. And the little fellow got enthused, and he ran up to the center of the boat, grabbed the old fisherman by the knees, and fell down there at his feet. He said, "Sir, I'm going to ask you a question. My Sunday school teacher, my mother, my pastor, no one could answer. Could anybody see God?" And the old fisherman, so overcome, he just pulled the oars in the boat, threw his arms around the little boy. He said, "God bless your little heart, honey. All I've seen for the past 50 years has been God. There's so much God on the inside of him. Everything he looked at was God." That's how you see God, is when you get God inside of you. Let Him look through your eyes. That's how you'll work for God. When God can use your hands, use your feet, use your lips, use your tongue, use your ears, use your eyes. God in you sees God on the outside. God is in His universe. He was in the rainbow, settled a question there that none of them could settle. I'm a hunter, as you all know. My mother's a half Indian. And my conversion never taken that out of me. I still go up into Colorado where I'm a licensed guide. And I ever fall and go way high in the mountains where I used to herd cattle for years and sat there many times, learned so much about God. I remember sitting there, my leg across where the Hereford Association grazes the troublesome river valley, watching the ranchers as we bring in the cattle, putting them up in springtime to herd. And here's one thing, reason I'm interdenomination. The ranger stood there at the drift fence, and he watched those cattle. If you can raise a ton of hay on your ranch, will produce as many tons of hay, it'll put a cow on the forest. I guess you still had the same laws here. And then the rancher standing there, watching those cattle, he never paid very much attention to what brand they had on them. Ours was a tripod, and the others made above us was turkey track, and just above there was Grimes, the big outfit that had the bar, diamond bar, and some of them put hundreds and hundreds of head of cattle on there. But you know, that ranger never noticed them brands. He watched for the blood tag in the ear. You couldn't put a Hereford on that forest or a cow on that forest without being a thoroughbred Hereford. It had to be a registered Hereford. And I think at the day of the judgment, God will not notice whether I belong to the Assemblies or the Church of God or what church I belong to. The brand that I wear, He'll look for the blood tag, the blood of His own Son. That's what He will look for. Nothing will go in there but a born-again Christian.